Okay, so stop everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you are working in Mexico right now, or you run a business there, or honestly, if you just care about how the global economy is shifting, you need to pull up a chair. Today is a massive day.
It really, really is. It's Wednesday, February 11, 2026. And we are looking at what is, it's arguably the most significant shift in Mexican labor law in a century.
A century.
The Senate has just approved the constitutional reform to Article 123.
Which, in plain English, means we are finally officially talking about the 40-hour work week.
Mm-hmm.
The headline everyone is sharing right now is "Goodbye 48 hours, hello freedom."
That is the headline, "We work less."
But, our whole mission on this deep dive is to move past the tweet and actually look at the documents.
Right.
And we've got the text of the reform, we've got the analysis document, Reforma Laboral 40 Horas Semanales, right here. Looking at the fine print from President Sheinbaum's administration, well, let's just say it's not as simple as taking every Friday off starting tomorrow. Not at all. I was reading through the source material and I had this kind of moment where I just realized there's a huge gap, a huge gap between the political slogan, the 5 days of work, 2 days of rest, and the legal reality of what actually got approved.
A massive gap. There are like 3 or 4 critical nuances here that really turn the popular understanding upside down.
Like what?
The timeline is slower than people realize, the weekend isn't guaranteed in the way you might think, and the math on overtime.
Honestly, the overtime math is where it gets really wild.
Oh, the overtime piece is fascinating. We have to get to that because it completely changes the financial incentives for employers.
It really does.
But let's start with the immediate question. It's February 2026. The Senate said yes. Does my schedule change tomorrow? Can I, call my boss and say, see you Monday?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? And the answer is definitely not. If there's one thing you need to take away immediately, it's that this is not a light switch.
Not a light switch. You don't just flip it and suddenly the whole country's on a 40-hour schedule. The approved text is very specific about graduality.
So let's unpack that first, because I feel like a lot of people are going to be disappointed when they realize they still have to work a full shift this Friday. Why the delay?
It's all designed to protect the economy, specifically the MIPMEs, the micro, small, and medium enterprises.
So the little guys.
Exactly. Think about the corner bakery or the local mechanic shop. They operate on razor-thin margins. If you force them to cut everyone's hours by 20% overnight, their labor costs would spike, and honestly, they'd likely go out of business.
So they baked in a transition period to stop the economy from seizing up.
Precisely. It's a 5-year ramp. The document lays it out very clearly. 2020. So this year is legally considered the transition phase.
Okay.
The maximum work week stays at 48 hours. Nothing changes legally right now.
So 2026 is just a get-ready year. Employers get to, I guess, panic and plan, but workers just keep grinding.
That's pretty much it. The real drop starts in 2027. That's when the cap moves down to 46 hours.
Okay, a little better.
Then in 2028, it drops to 44 hours. 2029, we go to 42. And then finally, in 2030, we hit the target of the 40-hour work week.
Wow. So we're playing the long game here. It's a 4-year slide.
It has to be. It lets companies adjust their pricing, their hiring, their technology. It's not an overnight shock. It's a slow burn.
That makes sense from a macro perspective, even if it's, annoying for the guy who just wants a break. But this brings us to what I think is the biggest misconception I'm seeing.
Let me guess.
The weekend. The weekend. Everyone hears 40 hours, and their brain immediately translates that to the English week. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Saturday and Sunday off to barbecue.
Exactly.
That was the slogan. 5 days of work, 2 days of rest. It's catchy.
Yeah.
But, and this is a huge but, if you look at the text approved by the Senate, there is a critical nuance.
Which is?
The reform changes the hours, but it does not explicitly guarantee 2 consecutive days off.
Wait, really? Hold on. I thought that was the whole point.
The point is reducing the load, the total hours. But regarding the days, the text maintains the current rule in the labor law, which says 1 day of rest for every 6 worked.
So, technically,
Yeah.
an employer could still make you come in 6 days a week.
Precisely. Think about the industries that drive Mexico. Tourism, hospitality, continuous manufacturing. A hotel in Cancun doesn't close on the weekends.
Of course not.
A car factory runs 247. Under this new law, even in 2030, they can ask you to work 6 days. They just have to make sure the total hours don't go over 40.
So instead of working 8 hours for 6 days, the old 48-hour model, you might work, what, like 6.5 hours a day for 6 days?
Exactly that. Or a shifting schedule where your days off rotate. It creates shorter daily shifts, which is great for reducing daily fatigue, but it doesn't necessarily create a longer weekend.
That is a huge distinction. It's not necessarily more days for my life. It's just more hours in my day.
Which is valuable. I mean, leaving work at 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. is a legitimate benefit.
Yeah.
But if you're a listener expecting a guaranteed Saturday off, you need to check your contract and talk to your HR department because the law does not force that.
That is going to cause some friction when people realize the English week isn't mandatory.
Oh, absolutely. There will be a lot of renegotiation of contracts come 2027.
Okay, let's talk money. Because if I'm an employer and my staff is suddenly working fewer hours, I have two choices. Hire more people or pay overtime to get the work done. And the source material highlights a massive overhaul here.
This is, I think, the most complex, but also the most fascinating part of this whole thing.
Right.
Usually when governments cut work hours, they try to penalize overtime. They want to force companies to hire more people.
Right, if overtime's expensive, I'll just hire a second person instead.
Exactly. But the Scheinbaum administration seems to have realized something pragmatic. Mexico doesn't have an infinite supply of trained workers ready to jump in. If they made overtime too expensive right away, supply chains would just break.
So what did they do?
So they changed the rules of the game to make overtime surprisingly flexible.
Okay, walk us through the math.
First, the caps. Previously, you were generally limited to 9 hours of overtime a week. The reform bumps that up to 12 hours allowed.
Okay, so you can legally work more overtime. That's already a big shift.
Yes, and they set a daily cap, max 4 hours of overtime per day, up to 4 days a week. But the real twist, and this is the aha moment for the finance nerds out there, is the cost of the 10th hour.
The 10th hour.
Okay, stick with me. Under the old law, the rule was the first 9 hours of overtime are paid at double your rate. Horas dobles.
Right.
But anything after 9 hours, so starting at hour 10, that had to be paid at triple your rate.
The big penalty, the don't do this tax.
Exactly. It was a deterrent. But the new reform, it shifts that bracket. Now, the triple rate only kicks in at hour 13.
Wait, so hours 10, 11, and 12
are now paid at double rates.
So for the employer, the cost of those specific hours, 10, 11, and 12, has actually gone down compared to the old way.
Technically, yes. The marginal cost of those specific hours is lower. It's a really interesting trade-off.
Hey,
The government is basically saying, we're lowering the base week to 40 hours. We know you'll need more overtime to survive, so we'll let you pay double for longer before we hit you with the triple penalty.
That is slick. It's like a pressure release valve for the companies.
It is, but don't let that fool you. This is not cheap for employers. The overall cost of payroll is still going up significantly.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm paying someone the same monthly salary, but they're working 40 hours instead of 48, my cost per hour just skyrocketed.
The analysis suggests the cost per effective hour worked rises by about 16.6% by the time we hit the 40-hour mark.
16%. That is not a rounding error. If you're a big manufacturing plant, that's millions.
It's a margin killer for a lot of businesses. And the document predicts two major reactions from employers because of this. Reaction 1, investment in automation.
The robots are coming.
They really are. If your human workers are 16% more expensive, suddenly that robotic arm or that AI software looks 16% cheaper.
It changes the whole ROI calculation.
Completely. Mexico has lagged in automation because labor was relatively cheap. This reform changes that whole equation. We're going to see a huge push for technology.
And what's the second reaction?
Recruitment. I mean, you'll need to hire more staff to cover the gaps. If you have a machine that needs to run 24 hours, you just need more bodies, which means more costs for recruitment, training, all of it.
But there's a flip side here. So think about employer branding, right? I saw that.
Yes, and this is the silver lining for smart companies. If you embrace this early, you become way more attractive to talent. In a market where everyone is burnt out, offering a sane 40-hour schedule is a huge recruiting tool.
So it's not just a cost, it's a competitive advantage.
Exactly. Come work for us, we respect your time. That sells.
Okay, let's pivot to the worker's perspective. Because getting paid the same for working less sounds amazing. But is there a catch? The salary can't go down, right?
Correct. The law is explicit. Salary reductions are prohibited.
Yeah.
You cannot lower someone's base wage because their hours dropped.
Okay, so that's the safety net. But companies have other levers they can pull, don't they?
They do. The analysis warns that while the base salary is safe, discretionary bonuses, productivity incentives, other perks, they might be on the chopping block.
So I can't cut your salary, but say goodbye to the quarterly bonus, and the free cafeteria.
Potentially. It's a balancing act. If payroll goes up 16%, that money has to come from somewhere. But there's a bigger risk here for the worker, something the document calls intensification of work.
Intensification. That sounds ominous. What does that mean?
Okay, imagine you have a task, let's say processing 100 invoices, that usually takes you 48 hours to do comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your boss says, great news, you only have to work 40 hours, but I still need those 100 invoices processed.
So I have to do the same amount of work, but I have 8 fewer hours to do it in.
Exactly. That is intensification. The density of the workday increases, the coffee breaks disappear, the casual chat by the water cooler, gone. The pressure during the shift might just skyrocket.
That's so ironic. The whole point of this, according to the documents, is to fight burnout. Mexico has some of the highest stress and cardiovascular issues linked to overwork in the world.
Some of the highest.
But you're saying this could accidentally make the workday more stressful.
It's a real risk. If we don't change how we work and only change when we work, we're just compressing the stress. We're turning a marathon into a sprint.
So instead of being tired because you were there for 10 hours, you're just exhausted because you ran at full speed for 8.
Precisely. Now, if it works as intended, if companies actually become more efficient, the health benefits are massive. Less exposure to accidents, more time for rest. It targets the physical toll of the 48-hour grind.
There's another layer to this, and it's the one nobody likes to talk about, but we have to. Compliance. Taxes. The government isn't just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts, are they?
Never. There is a very, very strong fiscal component here. Remember those increased overtime limits we talked about? That 12-hour window?
Yeah.
If workers start using that and they're earning double pay for those hours, their total income rises.
Which means
Their base contribution levels to IMSS, Social Security, and Infonavit, the housing fund, they all go up, which means employer quotas go up. The government collects more.
And I saw something about the SAT, the tax authority, getting involved with an electronic registry.
This is the big brother aspect. The reform introduces a mandatory, strict electronic registry of the workday.
So no more punching a paper card.
No more paper cards, and more importantly, no more off-the-books overtime. The SAT wants to track every minute. They want to ensure that if you do overtime, it's recorded, it's taxed, and it's paid correctly. It's an anti-simulation measure.
Anti-simulation. That's a very polite way of saying stop lying about how much your people are working.
That's exactly what it means. In the past, maybe you stayed late and the boss bought pizza or gave you some cash. The government wants to kill that. Everything digital and taxable.
So just to recap where we are, a phased rollout starting in 2027, a big misunderstanding about the weekend, new overtime math, and the tax man is watching our clocks.
That is a very solid summary.
So what's next? Is this a done deal? Can I go pop the champagne?
You can buy the champagne, but maybe don't pop it just yet. Today, the Senate approved it, which is a huge hurdle. But in Mexico, for a constitutional reform, the process is rigorous.
It goes to the Chamber of Deputies next, right?
Yes, it goes there for review and ratification.
Yeah.
And assuming they pass it, which is likely, there's one more step, it needs approval from the majority of the state legislatures.
Right, because it's changing the Constitution itself.
Exactly. So we need 17 of the 32 state Congresses to say yes. Given that this is a flagship initiative for the administration, it'll probably get pushed through, but it's not law today. It's a process.
It feels inevitable, though.
It does. The global trend is moving this way, and Mexico has been lagging behind. This is a catch-up maneuver.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? What should I be thinking?
If you're an employee, you should be thinking about efficiency. That intensification we talked about is coming. The best way to protect yourself is to get really good at managing your energy and your output so you can actually enjoy that extra time.
Don't let yourself get squeezed. And if you're an employer,
start planning now. Don't wait for 2030. Look at your processes. If you rely on cheap, long hours to make a profit, your business model is about to break. You need to pivot to efficiency and technology.
be proactive, not reactive. You know, we've always said Mexicans work some of the longest hours but struggle with productivity numbers. This law forces that to change.
That's the hope, that we stop measuring work by time spent in the chair, by FaceTime, and start measuring it by value created.
I love that. Value, not just presence.
Precisely. The boss wants you to go home now because keeping you there costs double.
That is a massive cultural shift.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've covered the rollout, the math, the taxes, but I want to leave everyone with a thought that really struck me.
Go for it.
The law promises us more time. It literally gives us hours back, but it doesn't guarantee us energy. And I think that's the real question here. If this reform leads to a condensed, high-pressure workday, will we actually feel more rested, or will we just spend those extra hours recovering?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Time is objective. Energy is subjective. We might get the time, but preserving the energy is up to us and the culture we build at work. The law gives you the container. You have to fill it.
Something to think about as this moves through the states. Keep an eye on how your industry reacts. Are they hiring, or are they squeezing? That's going to tell you everything.
Absolutely. Watch the actions, not the press releases.
That's it for this deep dive into the historic labor reform of 2026. Thanks for helping us break it all down.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening. Stay efficient, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.